What if two of the biggest names in the Scion Races scene went head to head? Maybe it would look a little something like this, but it's not quite perfect. Jotak's not playing the Genetron, he's playing Zerg. And an unusually spiky Zerg at that. This Overlord thinks he's a Stegosaurus. Now, from what I've seen, and I don't know this for a fact, Zerg is actually Jotak's official race. He'll always be Genetron to me, but he's a pretty darn proficient Zerg player. So each of our two players today has won a Scion Races round robin this year. So I exaggerate here, but this is kind of like our Maru versus Cyril here. Having these two hit is a pretty rare treat. Okay, so it's gonna be Edifice first, Hatch first. No surprises there. And I'm not surprised that the spiky Zerg has done this, because he is as sharp as a Jotak! His opponent is also a killer, but he's not the killer in me, he's the killer in you!
Decimate!
Alright, with that out of the way, we can get this show on the road. I should mention we are playing on something of a bit of a throwback map here. You, aka Magical Cookie, is going for the Gasless Expand. Jotak follows up with the Extractor Pool. Keiron's got a lot of gasless options now. Not just the Sanctum that he's throwing down right now, but also the Conduit. Though you do need gas to actually shape in units from those buildings. But I think what you is showing us here is it lets you get away with delaying your gas. Magical Cookie's Converter is going to get the scout off. He's going to confirm it's a hatch first. And if he pulls back in time, he might be able to join us as we witness the glory that is the hatch pop of the yellow Zerg. It's not just goopy, it's also sunny. Who doesn't enjoy getting ripped apart by a happy yellow colored Zerg? Magical Cookie's catching up on gas here. He gets his second. His Sanctum's gonna finish up, but the pool is done, so that converter really should think about vamoosing. But it looks like Magical Cookie wants to keep it around just to make sure there's no funny business. Jotak's Overlord's got a perching point. He can see that Keiron's generating charges, but no units. This appears to prompt him to go for a fast Evo chamber. Oh, Lings are out. Chance for a first blood here. Oh, I thought we were going to get a pincer maneuver there, but the Lings were on rally. They didn't have an attack command, and that means Magical Cookie will sneak out. Oh, the Overlord lost his perching point. Double Volt shape in, and they're going after it. I think the Volt range is a bit too far for him to escape over the water, and the perching point doesn't actually work on this map. If you get a unit on the high ground, you can get vision to that Overlord. And it looks like Jotak is going to show us why Zergs don't particularly like Jagannatha. Oh, he's getting it from both ends. That's the first blood. Jotak gets supply blocked, and Yu immediately throws down an outlet and a second edifice. Meanwhile, Jotak is researching not just Ling speed, but also Overlord speed. The upgrade that Special once declared to be the most OP upgrade in all of Starcraft. Why? Because it lets Zerg see what he's up to. Jotak takes his third. Oh, and before I forget, people, I do want to clarify that the game that we're watching right now is not from a tournament. It's more like a show match. An early +1 melee attack being researched for Zerg. It starts up as speed finishes. But look at the air commitment here for Keiron. That's an Empyrean being shaped in. I like how Yu's putting his air buildings over top his mineral line. I guess the idea, if it makes it just a little bit harder for your opponent to see their mineral line, he can't click on it to attack it. Maybe it's one of those minuscule Keiron edges that we'll see develop. Magical Cookie takes his third, and the creep spread for Jotak is looking pretty solid. His third's just about to pop. The worker lead, though, and hence the mineral lead, does belong to Magical Cookie. All hail the geyser of goop. Yu begins researching Volt speed, while Queens 3 and 4 are popping out for Jotak. Double pulsars guarding that Keiron door. That's pretty secure. And he shapes his units outside the door so he doesn't even have to rotate the units. And those units are going to be the backup for setting up that Keiron third. Meaning Keiron has a chance to go up on even bases, but it's likely that Jotak will continue pushing ahead with a fourth. Jotak starts up a lair. He's also got a Baneling nest underway. Also Queen 5 and 6. Jotak has a gasless army so far. He's done this all off of a single gas geyser. No sign of any early aggression by either player. Jotak has a couple of zerglings out on the map, but they're mostly just for scouting, I suspect. Oh! The outlet charge did not make an aurora as I assumed. That is an aperture. If you're confused, it's because we barely get to see this unit. That's the Keiron shuttle. It picks up and drops off its units with teleportation, kinda like a warp prism. But it's gonna get even better, I think. Magical Cookie's researching the keyhole upgrade for it. That lets the aperture pick up units at great ranges. I know there's some zergling cleanup going on, but we're gonna have to keep an eye on this. This is part of the Keiron game I'm really hoping to see develop. As near as I can tell, nobody's really gotten this to work on any kind of consistent basis. Oh, Jotak had a good overlord net. He spots this. He's moving into position to defend. Yu makes his move. Wham! He drops everything at once. The exiting units don't have to take turns like the case with a Terran dropship. Yu almost butchered a queen there with that surprise maneuver, but the zerglings came in there to save the day. Excellent defense by Jotak. I absolutely hate it. Notice that Yu was able to save every one of his units with that fast pickup. He's gonna try again, but the surprise value is really gone here. And there are 7 queens out on the map now. This is one tough environment to work in. Jotak's gonna respond by putting down a spire. You gotta think Mutalisks would be a great way to deal with apertures. The keyhole research is done. Everything we've seen so far has been without that. Oh, the aperture's gonna get caught in that corner. Whoa, what? Oh, was there not enough room to avoid the queens? That was an almost fully loaded dropship there. I guess you could say that Keiron got caught with his hand in the magical cookie jar. Oh, he types out a bra to express his sadness. With that excellently defended harass, Jotak comes out with a much larger army. Zerg does not have the worker lead though. Keiron's ahead on that score. Yu responds to his potentially vulnerable position by starting up an Aegis. We can't see it, but it's generating at its third. Jotak briefly got supply blocked there. I missed the death of an overlord. And it's spiky banelings. Wouldn't the spikes interfere with their rolling ability? Jotak is researching centrifugal hooks. Maybe they're not sharp spikes. Maybe they're more like flexible protrusions. Whoa, that is a lot of edifices, 4 to be precise. That's gonna generate some supply room for Magical Cookie. He's also dropped double reliquaries, and I saw another aperture flying around. I applaud that spirit. Yu is determined to make this work. That is a 5th edifice being shaped in. That's gonna take the Keiron up to 7. We're looking at a serious Volt Pariah Palooza here. And I probably buried the lead again. There's now a Zenith sitting in the mineral line at the main base. We could be adding Paragons into this game. But here's the moment not to be missed. Man, it never gets old. Jotak started up an infestation pit. He's gonna be able to unlock Hive Tech pretty soon. Oh, that is indeed a Paragon shaping in next to that Harbinger. Jotak focusing on mass banelings. He's just made a dozen, and he's getting a huge batch of fresh baked lings behind it. Nobody likes stale lings, people. You either gotta donate them to charity or throw them out. Oh, that single Paragon's going off on his own here. He'll be a pretty awesome baneling hunter, but there's a lot of queens out there. Jotak takes his 5th base. His 4th is already up and running. Keiron's just starting to shape in a 4th now. Jotak has to be happy with his creep spread. He's got vision across half the map. He's gonna see that Paragon coming from a mile away. Look at the Sim City here. There's no way the Lings can get at that 3rd. The 4th, on the other hand, that was a nice snack. Great recognition by Jotak. Take the low-hanging fruit. Meanwhile, the Paragon makes it all the way to the main. There's Corruptors there to greet him. Forget the queens. Oh, and Jotak's rotating them. And the Paragon's gone. That was a keyhole, people. Where is he? Where is he? He's all the way behind the main, safe and sound. That was the aperture that did that. Magical Cookie has just recreated the battle cruiser's tactical jump. I have not seen that done with a Paragon before. We'll have to talk about it later because here comes Jotak. He's trying to get us around with his lings, but Cookie's pulling back. There's a shield boost on that Harbinger there. That comes from the Paradox. It gives you an extra 150 points of shields. Not to be confused with the Fuse, which also gives you the glowies and 150 shields. Dedicated Keiron watchers must learn their different glowies. Jotak still looks like he's trying to make something happen with his cheap lings. Yu's researching the dampener upgrade, don't see that very often, and he's just finished his +1/+1. That's gonna put him ahead of the Zerg, who's just got that +1 melee. Oh, the queens have come up to support this attack. You pulls back and Jotak gets the Citadel for the second time. He's also isolated those two Paragons. They're in trouble. Queen's marching back to the creep. Look how tough those Paragons are. That's a lot of Corruptors. Oh, he's charging the Emissary Orb. What a way to go out. That is how you take your opponents with you. It was cool, but I do think that Jotak is controlling the air now. That is just so many Corruptors. Subjectors would deal with them nicely, but I'm not sure how they'll trade against the Zerglings. It's a really neat composition for Jotak. It's putting some pressure on you. I don't mean you guys, I mean Magical Cookie. The Keiron player's avatar will forever cause me problems. Anyways, the Keiron response appears to be to pick up latent charge and exalted shields. Volts can be very effective against Corruptors in large enough numbers. And that's starting to look like large numbers. And he's gonna try to get +2/+2 to go with it. Harbingers would also be pretty good against Corruptors too if they can go into Judgment mode, but it's kind of a demanding form of micro. And of course there's always turrets. Jotak orders 36 more lings. Both players are mining about the same amount of gas, but Jotak is pulling in way more minerals. This kind of stunt lets him leverage that, and he's got the larva to pull it off. What he doesn't have is the crackling upgrade to really bring that home. And for that matter, he's actually been too busy to get himself a lair. Okay, so it's a Harbinger Volt composition. That's gonna be really good against those Corruptors. Oh, and you see he's got detection too. That's coming from the Paradox. That's a permanent detector, like an observer. We always think about its sexy spells, but really one of its functions is just that baseline detection. Oh ho! Hand caught in Magical Cookie Jar again. Look at those Corruptors just annihilate those apertures. They were all sneaking up the right-hand side. They were all empty. I think they were gonna do something cool with a keyhole, but we never got to see it. With all of his creep, Jotak has incredible vision here. The Corruptors might even want to focus down those Paradoxes and preserve their creep. The Banelings are rolling to kill that fourth base yet again. Oh, a clutch lightning bolt went off. That really thinned the... Oh, and now it is a shield from the Aegis. Magical Cookie completely shuts down that Baneling assault. The nullifiers continued to shoot at the Banelings outside the shield as long as they were in range. That was a terrific sequence of action there. I don't know who's got this anymore. Jotak's up on supply. And he's killing bases, but Yu's really bringing the tech now. In response, Jotak has gotten his hive, and he looks to be contemplating a Hydra transition. He's getting both the upgrades. He's doing it double den style. And a lurker den too. We could get treated to some late game KVZ here. Aegis shield expires and the Corruptors sneak in there to take some shots. The Harbinger count's pretty high. Oh, prison! The Harbingers go into Judgment mode and they just throw splash all over the prison. The Corruptors are burning. That was pretty cool. Jotak tries to respond by sneaking in his Banes and Lings. He gets the Citadel and goes for the natural. Oh, blocked out by a shield. That was outrageous. But instead of dying of shock, the Lings go for the third base as well. They can sneak in behind the SimCity and just start killing everything. Keiron's gonna get the cleanup, but that was an economic hit. Zerg is definitely gonna have the mining advantage after that. He's just dropped from 60 workers to 46. And he's lost that Citadel for the third time in a row. The Hydras are in production. Yu's going for Mass Harbinger, adding in that Paragon. He's also rebuilding that fourth at the same location. There's just so much creep, the Keiron can shoot at it all day long. One thing that occurs to me though is the Hydras are not gonna have any numeric upgrades. Keiron's got +2/+2 for his bio, and you'll be frequently surprised to discover which Keiron units are actually bio. Remember, they're a cyborg race, so there's a lot of bio components to a lot of their units. Well, the Hydras are making their debut here. They're backed by Queens. Jotak wants to defend the creep. Some of those Harbingers are still in Judgment mode. They're doing so much damage to those Corruptors. The Paradoxes add in another shield as they try to vie for MVP status here. And just like that, Jotak finds himself on the run. Keiron pushing in deep. Zerg struggling to find a way to challenge that Death Ball. I think he's gonna need Vipers or Infestors. He's gonna need some kind of spell to deal with that Death Ball. Jotak is able to save his hatch. Keiron just keeps repositioning, all the while finding more creep tumors to kill. Jotak definitely knows where his adversary is, he's just not sure he's got the units to deal with it. Yu just keeps reinforcing, he's added in a ton of volts. Jotak responds by making a ton of zerglings. Magical Cookie finishes researching convergence. That's the Keiron Storm. It's a spell for the Meridian, but you don't often think of it as a weapon against the zerg because it does double damage against mechanical. But Magical Cookie may be getting to that phase where he's pretty much researched everything else. Jotak stopped macroing, he's looking to go for it. He's chasing the Keiron into a corner. Prison drops on the Corruptors, splitting the air forces. Banelings detonate. There's an emissary orb charging. There's Corruptors still trapped in the prison. And just as the prison ends, they get killed in the detonation. And Jotak GG's. A spectacular battle to end it off. Okay, can we get serious for a moment? Because there are things to talk about here. First off, we just had actual legit keyhole action in this game. When the Keiron first came out, I was so sure this was going to be a huge piece of the way the race was played. Didn't exactly happen. Although there was some experimentation with it, the Keiron community largely quickly moved on to other Keiron-y toys. Now, keep in mind, I'm the same dweeb who was sure the meta was eventually going to embrace the microbial shroud upgrade, and I'm still waiting. So, kudos to Magical Cookie for showing us what a keyhole strategy might actually look like. You can turn an expensive unit into an ultra long-range harassment toy without fear of losing that unit and suffering an inefficient exchange when it blows up in your face. You can't really lose a trade when you don't lose your harass unit. By the way, I would have loved to have seen what was going to happen with that triple aperture trip Cookie was trying to line up. The apertures were all empty, so I assumed Cookie was going to fly them into his opponent's main and then teleport a huge army to their location. Not unlike a mothership recall. But even more interesting to me was the plain and ordinary shuttle-style drops by the aperture towards the beginning of the game. Now let's admit it. Jotak defended this so well that it did not look impressive at all. But what Cookie was showing us here is the potential power of what I'll call the aperture's insta-drop. A lot of other transport units have a time delay when they release units, and that's a limiting factor. But here, Cookie drops something like 8 pariahs and they get instant surface area for their melee attacks. This is still more theory crafting than verified, but dang, that could be brutal. Next off, can we just look at the force fields? I think these are awesome every time I see them, but some force fields are better than others. Where I think this is going is Keiron is going to start deliberately placing units at the edges of where the force field is going to extend and then waiting. The idea is to take advantage of the unit's ability to shoot out of the force field while the attacker cannot shoot into it. An attacker comes in for the kill, swoosh, the force field comes up. Normally the defenders bounce away, and it's a wash with Keiron earning valuable seconds to get their stuff together, maybe shape in more units. But what if all those units on the force field edge, just on the inside of it, were able to keep attacking? 'Cause they can. I mean, imagine a long-range unit like an Inducer. They could get a ton of hits on units trying to scramble away. Also, this force field right here, the one used to plug the wall, was just stupendously clutch. Unfortunately, Jotak adapted instantly and went after the third, but this was still such a boss play. The final subject to rave about was the prison play. The prison is a spell from the flying unit The Paradox. Based solely on appearance, the prison might just be the coolest spell in the game. Honestly, I first thought the Paradox's prison spell was more pretty than genuinely useful. But I am being proven wrong on that score more and more every game I watch. The reason I failed to appreciate the prison's utility was because units trapped in the prison can still attack and fire outside the field. They just can't move outside it. So a lot of times, when a player casts the prison spell, it actually achieves very little. The unit is imprisoned, but it makes no difference because the Keiron is attacking the imprisoned units anyway, and the imprisoned units just trade out as normal. Truthfully, your energy would have been better spent on a 150-point shield. But then, some clever Keiron players started showing the prison's value by setting up combos. The first combo to hit the scene was the very deadly Prison plus Emanator combo. It makes perfect sense and looks incredible. GGs tend to follow. But not everyone can pull that off. There's a lot of micro to make that happen. The second variation we started to see was Prison plus a Meridian's Convergence spell. This also makes sense because the convergence is slow and visible several seconds before it deals damage, so it's quite capable of being dodged when used without Prison. Then, in this game, Magical Cookie demonstrates you don't even need a spell. He used a Prison and combined it with the Harbingers in Judgment mode. Bye-bye, Mass Corruptor. But here's where I'm going with this. I've belatedly figured out that while these combos are awesome, Prism is actually awesome just by itself in isolation. Because, if used properly, the Prison spell can actually split an opponent's army. It's a little bit like the effect you get with Sentry Force Fields. I'm not sure it was intentional in this game, but you can see that Cookie did it in the final battle. You drop the Prison, and then you pull your army back. If your opponent pursues you, he leaves all the units in the Prison behind. In this case, Jotak wound up attacking with half his Corruptors instead of all of them, and they were handily defeated. So as this kind of strategy evolves, the Prison spell is going to be a significant battlefield control element. If you don't want your army to get split, you have to camp out at the Prison and defend it until the spell ends, essentially pinning down your entire death ball. Anyway, props to you, aka Magical Cookie, and to Jotak for this very eye-opening game. Please drop them some props in the comments below because we really want to encourage these guys to bring us more matches like this one. So from my base to yours, Zugzwang out. To continue your Starcraft journey, Nova advises you to click the video in the upper rectangle. But Kerrigan warns you to watch your 6 and click the video in the bottom rectangle. Or you can stimpack your Starcraft experience. Subscribe to Zugzwang Starcraft. Just hit the circle. From my base to yours, Zugzwang out.